We're going to take a look at SPY here on the weekly chart. You can see that basically our body of this candle in here still has some indecision, but we still have this long upper wick in here. That basically shows that there was volatility and now everything is trying to even out. Today, if you look at the quote, you go, oh my gosh, we're down around $10 and some change from yesterday. Yes, that is true, but we also had a gap down in pre-market and we basically opened up around like 670, 671, somewhere around there. So really only about half of that came during market hours. So it looks like a little bit of volatility kicked in, but yet then got sucked out during the market hours, if that makes sense to you guys, right? So overall, our implied volatility here, Ivy rank in the SPY sitting at 41. You have right around a $7 expected move priced in by Friday's expiration, Monday's expiration, right around 13 bucks. So where does that kind of put us overall on this weekly chart here? We're sort of sitting in no man's land, right? We keep on talking about the 652. That's where we really want to be. Obviously, we had those lows of 656 and 657 coming in those after hours in the early morning back at the beginning of the week. So that is going to be a little hiccup for us as we work our way down there. But really, that is where we want to be to start actually for sure getting long and knowing we're going to get a huge rip. But until then, we're kind of letting the chart kind of dictate things. And today wasn't really that much help where we kind of gapped down and then just kind of lingered out, right? So instead of having those big vicious moves again, we still had a $4 move, which is relatively large, but compared to what we just seen the past 2 weeks, it's really nothing, right? And that's what the options are kind of telling you too. So if you notice your options prices, they didn't really expand and contract as much as you would think they would on a $4 move, just because of the moves that we had in the past few weeks or so in the overall markets. So going forward, we're going to be looking at that 660 mark. We're looking at 655. And then we're going to be watching that 652 down here on the downside. Anything below there, we're going to chalk it up to this 5-day or the 50-day SMA, which is trading at 641. To the upside in here, we're watching nice whole numbers, 670, 675, until we get back up here to that 680 range. And then obviously above there, then we can start worrying about 685 and things like that. 680 is currently where our 9-day EMA is trading. So that's where we kind of want to be to kind of suck out some more volatility just because the VIX is so high right now. But until then, it looks like we might have to be down here to kind of take care of that on some consolidation. It's interesting to note too that the overall net flow basically flipped today from bullish. It wasn't really extremely bullish, but it was bullish. And then it flipped extremely bearish right around 2:30 or so. And the what's interesting to note is that the actual long-term net flow was extremely bullish up until that point. So it looks like longer term people were buying calls until around 2:30 or so. Then everything kind of switched to that bearish mode. But the overall net flow, taking short-term 0 DTE and those long-term together was slightly bullish, and then it had that drastic flip. So it's interesting to kind of keep in the back of our mind that, hey, longer term, it looks like people were actually buying those calls up today. But, we can do with that information what we will. On the chart, though, all we care about is going to be those nice whole numbers, 655, and then 652 down here. And then on the upside, we're worried about 660 and then 660 and 675. We're going to take a look at the VIX in here really quick, just because we mentioned the VIX in here. So you can still see we're extremely elevated in here, sitting at 27 in here. We mentioned that if we are still going to be below this 28 level and in between this 23, it's probably going to consolidate in here. And might be the new norm for quite some time. So it looks like everything is kind of doing what we thought it would. And especially on days like today, where you have it elevated and then it kind of sucks out, but then kind of goes back in, right? So it's kind of interesting to see the correlation between the overall VIX and the overall market. We're going to take a look at the Qs since we did just talk about SPY in here. You can see more indecision on the day. We actually ended green, we're still green on the week for this candle in here, but we are down below that big key $600 area. That is going to be our first and major resistance in here going first. That's going to be a nice psych level for us to kind of breach and hold. To the anything above the 600, we're looking at 607. Then we're watching 613. To the downside in here, we're watching that 588, and then we're going to be looking down here right around that 577 mark or this lower trend line, whichever one of these do come first. As far as our implied volatility goes in our Qs, it's basically the same, right? IB rank at 41, basically the same expected move $7 by Friday, and then you have a $12 expected move priced in Monday. So basically the same type of move being priced in here overall in the NASDAQ ETF and your S&P 500 ETF. So let's keep an eye on both of these accordingly and then see what happens tomorrow. We may get some decent volatility in here to play with since it's already elevated. So it just depends on, is it going to increase or are we just going to suck everything out? We're just going to get a nice big rip in here up to those key levels that we just mentioned. That's going to be kind of the question, but we'll see what happens in here tomorrow on our last trading day of the week. And we're going to see where these candles close out. And then we're going to see what happens over the weekend as we continue with this war in the Middle East. All right, guys, if you like this video, make sure to check us out on all of our social media. We also have a Discord service if you are interested, and you can find all of our socials in the description below.